You say you want this problem to go away, but do you? Really? Because most of us don't when it actually comes down to it. And there's several good reasons for this. It's not because you're stupid, because of course you know in your head that this problem is not doing you any favors. But at the same time, it actually is. And it can take different forms. I know from my own point of view or my own experience, because this is still quite new to me that you can actually benefit from the problems you have. But let's take my financial issues, for instance, because that is a pretty big one, and it seems incredibly stupid to actually want to hold on to it. I have a lot of debt. Mostly it's student debt from when I was young, but not only. I made a lot of poor choices when I was very young, and I'm still paying for it today. And I have felt so much shame about it, really, and it has dragged me down and it has had so many consequences in my life. And I'm 42 now, and it still has like so much effect of my life. It really has been a struggle. And I have like talked about this so much with people, or not with many actually, because a lot of people I was so ashamed, so I didn't even want to tell them about this issue, because I felt that it meant that I was a bad person, that I had this problem. So this has been going on for about 20 years actually, almost. And then one day I came across a tapping video where we were tapping on a problem we had. And one of the questions was, what is the benefit? How are you benefiting from having this problem? Ooh, a bit windy today. Whoop, that was my water bottle. Um, yes, how are you benefiting from having this problem? Because actually we always get some kind of benefit from hanging on to a problem. And in my case, from this, and the same with my health actually, it was something along the lines as, if I have this problem, I have an excuse for a lot of things. I have an excuse to not going after the things I want, to keep being kind of stuck, because this is such a big obstacle. So as long as I have it, I have a reason not to do this. I have a reason not to get any further. And this was quite mind blowing actually for me when I found out that this was the case. And the same was actually the case when I have been single for most of my adult life. I had a relationship when I was very, very, very young. It was a very unhealthy relationship that lasted a few years. And then I didn't go into a new one for almost 20 years, actually. And there is a lot of fear there. And then a few years ago, I met someone and we ended up in a relationship. And I had acquired all these friends, um, other women that were single as well, most of them anyway. And then I went into this relationship and I was really happy about it. But at the same time, I could feel there was something that I was struggling with. And it only became very clear to me after we broke up that it was this identity of being single. It's not like I wanted to be single for 20 years, but it had become a big part of my identity, the one that was always single, and that was also quite kind of my identity in my friend groups, even with the ones that had relationships, but especially with this group that didn't, because that was the group that I was hanging out with the most, and I was used to us being able to relate to each other and having these troubles with not being able to find relationships. And and then I actually went into one. Yeah. And then I struggled with losing that identity because I didn't really know who I was anymore. So that it's not that you're stupid for holding on to this problem. It's because you're actually benefiting in some way. And it can be like the reasons I said here, like you have an excuse to not go after what you want. You get some kind of attention, or yeah, actually attention, or it it is a reason for people to take care of you or take it easy on you because you have this problem. And if you're someone who has not been used to people taking care of you or struggle with actually receiving that kind of affection, then it can be a bit more okay if it's because there's something wrong with you. Then it can feel okay to have that attention or that taken care of. And another part of it is this kind of identity. Who am I if I don't have this problem? Who am I? So the very uncomfortable question that no one really wants to sit with, but that is so incredibly important if you actually want to move forward. That is, what are you gaining from keeping this problem? What is the benefit you're actually getting? The secondary gains or the identity, or and ask yourself also this question: is the problem holding on to me, or am I holding on to that? Because as long as I have this problem, then I don't have to show up for my life. Not really. I always have this excuse that if it only was for this problem, if that didn't exist anymore, then I would have what I wanted. And it's not something you have to fix today, but just maybe stop pretending that you have actually tried to make it go away, because that is often the case when nothing seems to be working. When you talked about it in therapy with your friends, you've journaled about it, you have done all the things, it seems like, but still you're carrying this problem around for years and years and years, and nothing seems to work. Then ask yourself that question: how am I benefiting from keeping this problem? Because as long as you're unaware of this, nothing is gonna change, and you will never get to the place you want to go and where you meant to go. All of this fear just keeps us small, and it keeps us sitting on the outside of our life, just looking in and thinking and wishing that things would be different, and without even knowing that we're the reason why it's not changing. So that was just a few thoughts on this. And actually, I just had another episode or insight about this earlier today, relating another topic, but that is also related to something else. So I think I'm gonna save it for that video. But yeah, let me know if this made any sense for you, or you can recognize some of these patterns, or you have experienced this yourself. Let me know, and stick around if if this resonated. Take care. Bye.